Okay, so we are joined today with Stephen Garvey,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
I guess you made a little bit of headlines in the news today, and I want to give you an opportunity to kind of explain what happened over here. So it looks like you approached a Sikh person about something related with Islam or about something of that nature. So is it okay we can just play these clips and then you can kind of give your set of stories as far
99
as what
cents
happened?
plus tax at participating
Sure,
retailers.
fair enough.
All right, let's go.
Alto.
Let's see what it says.
Do you know when Islamophobia was created by the Muslim Brotherhood in 1990? This Ireland's criticism of Islam? It's true. It's not hate, it's the truth, buddy. We don't need that kind of racism. I'm not racist. I'm not racist.
Okay, so I guess that's a little clip. Tell us what happened, because I know the media condemned you for this. You basically approached a Sikh person. Were you aware he was Sikh?
Of course I was. I spent 6 months in India, and I've got many Sikh friends. It's crazy, the assumptions in the media.
Hmm.
Nadir, can I call you?
Yeah, Nadir, that's
Or
my name. Yeah.
yeah. So Nadir, it's just assumptions in the media. Like I said, I spent 6 months in India.
Hmm.
I spent a month in Pakistan. Uh,
Oh,
so I'm fully aware of what is. I've been to Gurdwaras. I've got Sikh friends. So
yeah,
to me, what occurred had nothing to do with his ethnicity or religion. It could have been a white Caucasian.
sure.
It wouldn't have made a difference.
Well, so let me ask you a question, and I'm not like too much on the whole immigration debate and politics, but what is your problem with Islam as a religion that would make you, I guess, so upset that you would confront this person?
Well, you got to understand the context of what happened. There's a 10-minute live video we took,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of explains it. We weren't. We were calling him out, and like I said, he could have been any other career politician.
Yeah.
He could have been Hindu, Muslim, Caucasian, Christian, you name it. It wouldn't have mattered. I was calling him out for his political correctness and vote pandering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In this particular instance, he was uh, he was bringing up the issue of Kashmir, which has nothing to do with Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I actually took offense to that because we have a lot of issues in Canada with our seniors, our veterans, our unemployed, etc. So
Yeah.
we don't need more of these career establishment politicians pandering like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt he needed to be called out. But I have to stress, I had nothing. He could have been Muslim. It wouldn't have mattered.
Sure.
He
Yeah.
could have been Sikh. Uh, the media ran with it. People were assuming I didn't know about Sikhism or
Right.
Sikh or the difference, which is absurd.
So that's not true.
It's completely false.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
have to stress another point. They were saying I'm racist,
mhm.
and that's false too. That's completely false because even though I was critical of political Islam in that dialogue,
Mhm.
Islam is not a race. So it's a religion and also a political ideology, a way of life.
Mhm.
It's not a
Yeah,
race, so it's not
sure.
racism. So
Well,
we have laws in Canada which allow us to be critical of religions, ideologies.
sure. Now you keep bringing this up about that that Islam is a political ideology, right? So what do you
That's
mean?
that's only one aspect of it.
Yeah, so like we are Muslims living. I'm in the USA. You're in the Canada. Do you believe we have some kind of agenda to put some political ideology forward and or something like that? Is that your view?
No, I wouldn't. I never speak in a broad brush on any
Sure.
group. I would never do that. I definitely know. I know Sikhs who want to believe in the supremacy of Sikhism, for
Hmm.
example.
Hmm.
I know Christians who believe in the supremacy of Christianity. I know Muslims who believe in the supremacy of Islam.
Hmm.
So yes, there are groups. I don't know what percentage who want to implement their religion ideologies worldwide.
Hmm.
and that is a fact. Does it in the case of Islam, does it apply to every single Muslim? I would say no. There's no way it does. You can't stereotype like that, Nadir.
Sure. No, no, I agree
So,
with you.
but we have to accept that there's a lot of video evidence, and we actually interviewed people at that Muslim fest who were supportive of the idea of implementing Sharia, right?
Well, so am I.
There you go. So, but we
Well,
don't think that is compatible with our liberties and civil rights in Canada.
well, okay. Well, see, that's I think where the problem is. I mean, and I think this is where there's a mass confusion here, and there are people who do try to promote hatred and try to promote this type of misunderstanding. When I say I believe in promoting Sharia law, what I mean is tomorrow my wife is going to go to work, she's going to get a paycheck, and she's going to give none of it to me. So that's what Sharia teaches, that when the woman works, all the money which she makes belongs to her. And as far as when I work and I make money, that money she has a share in. So we actually have jokes in this house where I say, "Oh, come on, man, take me out to dinner. Give me $10. Give me $20. You're making a lot of money, you know." So this is what I mean by Sharia law. And let me give you another example. We own a home. In that home, there's a couple who rent it out. Now, they were late on a payment. And according to Islamic Sharia law, that's considered interest. So we got a $50 check for the late rent payment. I took that $50 and gave it right back to them. I said, you know what? We don't want this money. This violates Sharia law. So what do you see a problem in what I just told you?
Not in those particular instances, but I do know a lot. I'm not going to cast myself as an Islamic scholar, because I'm not, but I'm an educated civilian, if you will, on this subject. The first thing we need to look at Sharia, it is Islamic law for anyone who doesn't know that.
Sure.
My understanding, it's in Islam, Allah is the creator of earth, if you will. Prophet Muhammad is the messenger of Allah's message. Sharia is God's law. That's what it is for a devout Muslim. And then you link it into caliphate, which is the implementation of Sharia worldwide.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's the Sharia primarily comes from the Quran, and there's some good with it, I'm sure, like you were referencing there, but you could argue that there's some bad when we start to look at apostasy, blasphemy, and the punishments. Also the punishment to an unbeliever, and what about to an homosexual? You know, there's all that in there. I don't want to get into it, but that's when it gets, I feel there's we believe it's incompatible with our liberties, our civil rights. Yeah. You understand that, right?
Well, yeah. So, but going back to my initial point, do you see how that one simple statement, oh, sure, I support and practice Sharia, how that could be used by, just like how the media misrepresented you? Do you see how certain right-wing extremists can take that one statement and can misconstrue it and make it look like there's this big looming threat of these Muslims trying to implement Sharia, when in fact, when I explained it to you, it was nothing out of the ordinary. Do you see how it can be misrepresented?
It depends on the interpretation of Sharia. There's some very egregious forms of it. If you look at Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, there's lots of videos showing it. People, public beheadings of women, homosexuals thrown from the highest height. This type of stuff.
Well, let's tackle some of this, because there's a lot of fear mongering. And first of all, what you're talking about, I mean, if we look in this country, we have many homosexuals, many gay bars. Saturday night, they're going to be filled. How many homosexuals are being thrown from the rooftops here in this country, considering we have 6 million Muslims?
I can't comment on that, but I know there's female genital mutilation going on behind the scenes. If we
Mm-hmm.
look at UK, there are Sharia courts
Mm-hmm.
throughout the UK.
Okay. So let's
And
talk
but
about Sharia courts. Now, Sharia courts, that's kind of silly because you can go online and get your fatwas and answers. So who cares about, Sharia courts is kind of silly to bring that up when you can just go online. And there's so many people who issue fatwas, meaning religious edicts, and
sure,
Sharia court online.
sure. But
Yeah.
but the bottom line is that they exist. There's a lot of evidence suggesting that.
Okay, so how is this
And
a
not
threat?
and not everyone's online. And this isn't about fear mongering of Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
It's just looking at the ideology for what it is,
Sure. Yeah,
and
yeah.
looking at compatibility. And
Are people getting thrown off of rooftops here in America and Canada?
I know they
Homosexuals?
are in parts of the Middle
But
East.
what about here?
I can't say that. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Is this in the Quran that you know of?
As far as I know, it's in the Quran.
No, that's actually not true. About throwing a homosexual off the roof is not in the Quran.
No,
No,
from the highest height.
no, it's not in the Quran.
Does it happen in Saudi Arabia? I can
No.
show you video of it.
As far as homosexuals being thrown off a roof, that was something which ISIS, I think, did in Syria. But to say that this characterizes Muslims and this characterizes Islam, that's silly. And I'll tell you why. Because the first act of deception here, you could call it, because that's really what it is. Killing in homosexuals is actually taught in the Old Testament. That's actually found in the Bible. Now, does that mean that we now are Christians and Jews a threat? Because in the Old Testament, it specifically says to kill homosexuals. It also says to kill girls who are not virgins. This is all written in the Bible. So these are not new teachings. Oh, and apostasy, by the way, to kill the apostate is actually something which is found in the Bible. But now,
But let's focus on Islam now. But
But wait
let's
a second.
focus. See, the difference between Christianity and Islam is that Christianity went through a reformation, and there's clear separation between church and state. Understand that. But within Sharia, that's actually part of the Sharia doctrine is the union of religion and state. That's another incompatibility. I'm not clear on what's going on in the U.S. specifically. I know there's certain areas where Sharia is being implemented, like Dearborn, Michigan.
Oh yeah.
As far as I understand,
it's being implemented in my house, right?
Well, I hope no one's being violated in terms of their U.S. rights. That's all I can say.
I feel like I'm being violated when I don't get any of my wife's paycheck. I wish I could have some of that money.
Well, that's your interpretation of it, but like I said, there's all these other aspects. Agree.
That actually about the woman's money belongs to her. That's something which is I think 100% of all Muslims agree on. Now, whether they actually practice it, is another thing. So my point here is, if you look at Muslims, whether they practice, believe, or follow Sharia, I fail to see how we are any different from any other group of people on this planet. I'm a law-abiding citizen. My kids go to school. The Taliban, they kill people just for a good little girl. I'm sorry, they blow up schools, little girl schools. But we are actually paying money to a private school for our kids to get educated. So can you see how this whole issue of Sharia law has been blown out of proportion, and people are trying to paint us with this brush, say these people are different. These people are a threat because they have come to take away what our forefathers have paved the path and died for. And I hope you can see how this kind of fear mongering is taking place.
Yeah, I never play into that myself.
Okay.
We avoid stereotyping, broad brush. We don't wish any ill will on any Muslim person. We make that very clear.
Well,
but we're free to talk about ideologies. And
so you keep saying ideology. Do you think I'm following some ideology?
Well, Islam is a way of life
Sure.
based on our interpretation. It's more than a religion. It has a political doctrine to it, a governance structure in Islam.
Hmm.
So that's why we bring in the ideology component.
Yeah. See, I follow Islamic Sharia law to the best of my ability. I follow the Quran and the teachings of Muhammad. And what I have found, it has made me an outstanding citizen of this country who basically gives back, engages in charity, helps out with school type stuff. I mean, just really just a good overall citizen. So I guess from the way I'm looking at it, Sharia law has made me a good person.
In your opinion.
Okay, well, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's in your opinion. I'm not in your household. I don't
mhm.
know what's going on,
Oh,
but
okay.
that's
Oh,
your
I see what you're saying.
perspective.
Well, so
Yeah,
far
yeah,
at
that's
least
all I'm saying.
I don't see the cops
But
busting down my door.
the big issues with Sharia is there's a lot of egregious
Mhm.
stuff in it. Dr. Bill Warner has done good work on it. I know uh, Spencer.
Robert Spencer, yes.
Yeah, he's done work on it. There's other ones.
Mhm.
You could argue he's biased. He's showing a narrow scope of it.
Yeah.
But like I said, the way we approach it is we don't wish ill will on Muslims, but everything we know about Sharia, we see that it's incompatible, at
Mhm.
least the most egregious aspects,
Mhm. Mhm.
with
Well,
our liberties, civil rights.
do you feel
And
like you
I
Muslims?
met an imam that evening who's committed to a world caliphate of Sharia. He wants it implemented worldwide, and I didn't have issue. I told him I don't want ill will on you, but I question why you're in Canada.
Oh, so he's a bad guy because he wants a
He's
caliphate
not a bad
worldwide.
guy, but I question
I
the
want a caliphate
fundamental
too.
values I view as inconsistent
Oh, it's inconsistent.
with
Is
the
that what?
liberties,
Mm.
civil rights, and you could
Oh,
claim that women are treated well in Islam. Sharia,
yeah.
there's counter arguments to that
Mhm.
where they're not. They're actually treated as half a man. You
Mhm.
could argue
Well,
their
let's
views.
yeah, let me first address some of the points here about inconsistency. So there's a group of Christians, they're called the Jehovah Witness. Have you ever heard of
Yes,
them? Okay, the Jehovah Witness also do not believe in separation of state and religion. They will not stand up to pledge allegiance to the American flag. They do not believe in engaging in, like, if you were asked to go in the military, they will not. They do not uh, believe in participating in the government because they say this is man-made law. We only follow God's law. Do you see them as being inconsistent with our freedoms and values?
I think the most notable, if they were doing acts of violence against people, that would be a
Mhm.
criminal act, and it would have to
Yes.
be dealt with. But in terms of their overall, they're a very small minority.
Hmm.
And but in terms of political Islam, we need to look at EU, and that's where a lot of this fear is coming from, because we see what's going
Hmm.
on in the UK, in France.
You want to know what I'm scared
So,
of?
some of this is linked into ISIS.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, when they were going on their doing all their
Hmm.
terrorist
Sure,
acts
sure.
recently, and but
Well, okay, can I tell you what I'm afraid of?
go ahead.
I'm afraid that one day a couple is going to lose their right to terminate a severely disabled child, which they've determined in the womb at a certain month age. I don't know the exact numbers, but there are Christian people who are trying to change the laws of this country so that a woman cannot have an abortion. And that means you will now have to raise that, God forbid this happens to anybody that severely crippled or mental retarded child, because God loves all children. Do you see that as a threat?
A threat in what sense?
It's going to raise for the next 20 years a severely disabled child which could have been aborted. Is that a threat in your eyes?
It depends on the individual how you're
Mhm.
looking at it. It's
Yeah.
obviously
Well,
a pro-life stance,
yes, yes.
and anti-abortion.
That's
So
Christian Sharia law. Wouldn't you agree?
I don't think you can apply Sharia to Christian. It's an
It's
Islamic.
worse. It's worse. I mean, these are the real threats. Now, of course, it goes on. People have the right to view. They're trying to take away many rights from people, whether it be pornography. Now, of course, I'm against it, but that's somebody's freedom. I mean, it's his right to view it. They're taking away people's of abortion, like I mentioned. But so, what my point here is, Christians, they don't. There are Christians who take this same stance which Muslims have, where they will not even salute the United States flag or the Canadian flag, for that matter. They are opposed to our government. There are Christians who are training in the forest right now, like the Michigan militia, the 2%ers. These are Christian right-wing militias. They are training and they are claiming. I remember I watched this one video where she picked up her gun and she says, I pray to God every day I don't have to use this in case talking about if the police were to come and take her guns, then she's going to have to, quote, take actions out. Here is a lady who just is threatening law enforcement. She's threatening police officers, but that's okay. Now, what if I was a Muslim? I mean, of course, I'm a Muslim, but I mean, what if I was out there training in this battle fatigue camouflage in the forest, waving my gun, saying, I hope one day I'll never have to use this gun. Do you think there would be a different response here?
In terms of the extremism, or
in the way people view, would people see that as more of a threat for a Muslim to do those exact same actions as the Christians are doing? Isn't that some kind of, but it seems to me from what I'm trying to tell you, there's a double standard at play here. Christians, right as we speak, they're training in the forest inside the mountains for a big Armageddon type war or whatever they believe in. The 2%ers, they have all these views, but that's okay. Would it alarm you if you saw a group of Muslims in this country, well, I think Canada or whatever, training in the forest in
logistics? That's a fancy word for moving stuff. Point A to point B.
Sorry about that. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I think you're making a good point, but the reality is America, Canada, they're Christian-based countries. If I went over to Saudi Arabia and I was preaching Christianity, I would probably either be imprisoned, deported, or I could be killed.
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
just understand that. So you were invited to the country.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you weren't born in the U.S. So there is gratitude there, and you're allowed to practice your religion, ideology in your home as long as you're not harming someone else.
Sure.
Right. So understand that there is bias, like you're saying. I'm not going to deny that, but like I said, we have issue inherently with Sharia, the most egregious aspects in terms of our liberties and civil rights. Mm-hmm. Are there other extremist groups that would apply to? Yes, of course. They could be fringe, extreme Christian groups. Mm-hmm. Like you said, 100%. We talk about the KKK. We talk about Antifa, which we view as an extremist group as well. Well, so we're not singling out Islam for this, and we don't wish ill will on Muslims. And we make that very clear. Understand that. But we do question fundamentally the conflict in terms of fundamental liberties and civil rights.
Okay. Well, both the Bible and the Quran contradict the U.S. Constitution and probably the Canadian Constitution. Muslims are not any more of a threat than the Christians. You have Christians who take on the same position as Muslims do. And I think what I'm trying to get at over here, Stephen, is people are using this Sharia keyword, you can kind of say, to create this kind of atmosphere of fear, and that's what it is. It's fear mongering. Now, to say that somehow Muslims or in this country are working together to take away your rights and your privileges which you enjoy in the free world, this is what we see as fear mongering. Because when you really look at it, we're not doing anything more or less than what Christians or other groups are doing. I mean, can we agree on that?
I think on some level, but you have to understand there are, and I don't want to single out certain Muslims for this, but some of them are working towards a world caliphate, for example.
Yeah, me too.
Which is the implement. There you go. So I believe that's incompatible with Canadian,
But what
U.S.
is that
fundamental
you never asked
values
me
and
about my caliphate.
principles.
You never asked me about my khalifa, my idea of a khalifa, though.
But I know
Khalifa,
too much about Sharia, like
okay, yeah. It's all
the
open for
egregious sides,
interpretation.
dealing with blasphemy, apostasy,
Okay, let's do
dealing with
blasphemy.
non-believers.
Okay,
Okay.
let's do blasphemy real quick and apostasy and all these. Really, it's propaganda. You know, well, first of all, apostasy.
You think it is, but there's all kinds of video evidence of it. And
okay, let me give you my
see the
take.
difference. Hold on a sec. But the difference between Islam and Christianity is Christianity went through a reformation.
Mm-hmm.
Islam has never gone through that.
Sure.
And right now, what's happening is there are Islamic groups out there that are implementing the Quran as it was written 1,400 years ago.
Sure.
And that's what I'm
doing.
a real problem.
Well, that's what I'm doing, and I'm not a problem with any group of people. I implement the Sharia, the Islam, which was as understood 1,400 years ago, and I tell you what, I'm getting along
that's
with
crazy.
everybody.
In your home?
Well, yeah, in my home. Well, let's.
What about your
Stupid.
kids? Do you have any daughters?
Yeah, I have 2 daughters.
Have they gone through female genital mutilation?
No, not at all. They are.
Why?
They are. This is not mandatory in our religion. But let me back up.
But do they wear niqab?
No,
your wife?
No, absolutely not. She doesn't wear niqab.
Does she wear a hijab?
Yes, but that's her choice.
But it's mandated by the Quran, or is it or not?
Okay, so let's explain some of the. And again, this is a lot of. I'm glad we're having this talk because I know that these are the issues where when we look at the misrepresentations and false propaganda against our religion, they're going to sit there and say hijab is being forced and all these things. So yeah, let's talk about that. So in Islam, there is hijab, of course, a woman being covered, covering her head. But what's not in Islam is that you should force them or engage in some kind of act of coercion against a woman if she doesn't wear hijab. Now, when my daughters grow up, they're going to have an option. They're going to have a choice. They can follow our way, or they can choose to go another path. They're gonna have that freedom. Now, how does that contradict giving my kids the freedom to choose? Because I understand people when they go through high school, and I went through the same phase myself, by the way. You want to fit in with your friends, and there may be, you may kind of fall away from the religion, but that I see as being something temporary. Now, this view which I've given you, how does that contradict the Quran or the way Muhammad and the Quran, how they interpreted it? How is that a contradiction?
It's based on your interpretation. What you're doing is giving an example of yourself, and I don't know if it's accurate or not.
Yeah, well,
right. But my point to you, there's others, individuals, groups.
Yeah.
Within, for example, the Islamic community that are engaged in honor killing?
Honor killing is nothing to do with Islam. That's actually a teaching in the Bible. Honor killing is a biblical
It occurs
teaching.
in Sikhism, it occurs in Islam.
But is not part of Sharia law. That's crazy. This is where, again, another misconception is. Honor killing has nothing to do with our religion. This is an actual, it's what it is, it's something called an Israeliyat, meaning it's a Judeo-Christian influence upon Muslim people. So it actually originates out of the Bible. But we as Muslims, like for example, if our kids were to grow up and be bad or shame us in some way, we do not engage in killing them. In fact, there's many, if you look in, this is my point, Stephen, where I think, if I could give you some advice, you say, well, you keep giving your own example, Nadir. And yeah, I'm giving my own example because this is where it starts. You got to look at the individual Muslim community, and you don't go through the news. Oh, well, what about that one example we read in the news? This one guy, he killed his daughter for dressing in a provocative manner and falling away from the faith. Of course, that's there, but you got to also go to the masjid, the mosque, and you got to look at people like myself and see what we're doing. And I think that part is missing here. And so when you look at the propaganda of Robert Spencer, the propaganda of Warner. By the way, I had a discussion with Warner, Bill Warner. I'll send you that link if you're interested. When we get done, I'll also put in the description here. They don't bring up these points here because the vast majority of Muslims, we do not. We condemn honor killing. We condemn most of the things you're talking about. Now, I want to
Mm.
talk about one thing here about killing the apostates, and somehow this is a threat. I saw actually a video where this one Muslim guy living in the West, he said, yeah, I actually accept killing the apostates. I believe in a khalifa. I believe in death penalty for a homosexual or something like that. So now what's going to happen here is these the hate mongers like Robert Spencer, Warner, and other people, they will take those statements and then they will broadcast it all throughout the world and say, look how Islam is a threat. Did you hear what this man said? This is incompatible with our values and democracy. And I'm sure you've all heard the spew here. So there's several layers of stupidity at play here. Let's peel it off one by one. The first layer of stupidity is when we look at the punishments, or you could say the penal code of Islam, it is not for us Muslims to implement. This is something for the head of the state, the Khalifa. He is the only one who has a right to implement these laws, or whether it be punishment for whatever it may be. What he does, he then delegates it to a debutante, and it trickles down like that. That's how it works. This is not a vigilante religion. So let's hypothetically say I see someone engaging in debauchery on the street. There's a punishment for that in Islam. I don't pull over my car and walk up to that gay bar and say, you, come out here, I'm going to give you some lashes. At least I'm sure you will agree tonight. You can go to the clubs tonight. You could probably go hang out in some party. You're not going to see Muslims out there with whips and whatever trying to implement Islamic Sharia law. That's the first layer of stupidity here. Secondly, there are Christians who have the same view. But both Christians and Muslims who have these negative views, they live peacefully in the society. They've done so for hundreds of years, and they will continue to do so. It's their own opinion. Does that make sense?
It does, but I've talked to Christian Syrians who fled Syria. Who fled Syria. And unfortunately, there's so many moderates, for example, in Islam, but the extremists within it can pull them to the extreme.
Sure.
And he argued based on his experience there, where he had Muslim family friends. As soon as the war started and there was extremists coming out, that his neighbors who were his friends were actually wanting to kill him now. You see that?
Yeah.
You understand that? So
yeah. And
I appreciate what you're saying about, that just ties into what I said about Sharia courts, what you just said there. There is a process in place for Islam, right? For administration of society, the legal system, right? That's why we view it as a political ideology, a way of life, a governance model. It's more than a religion. This is just factual, but I have to stress that thing with Gurtan Singh. What I said was, the first thing I said to him was a fact in my mind, that it was the Muslim brother who created Islamophobia to silence criticism of Islam. Criticism of Islam is considered a blasphemy.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Do you know? Actually,
understand that. You understand that, and all Gurtan could say to me is, "I'm a racist," right? But I say back, Islam is not a race. It's actually multiracial.
Do you know why we condemn criticism of Islam?
Why? Go ahead.
You want to hear our secret?
I don't think it's a secret, but
no, I'm going to tell you today. No, we never gave you the reason why we do it. You want to hear? You want to hear why?
Sure, you can share it with me.
Yeah. So there's two reasons. Number one is because we see where are they going with these criticisms. And when we look at what they're doing, what they're actually the goals and objectives of these so-called criticisms of Islam, it's fear-mongering. Okay? They're not coming and say, oh, I just read the Islamic scriptures and it's a bunch of hogwash and I don't like this, I don't like that, and it's the most whatever. If something was like that, we could care less. Yeah, okay, whatever. What we see here is that they're using this so-called criticism of Islam to do to us what they did to the Jews in the exact same way. They're even using the same arguments. And so we can look at the history. We can see where they are going with this. And we are saying, we got to put a stop to this right now. Okay. And so I'll give you an example. All this baloney, honestly, is what it is about Sharia law being a threat. Our main objection to this is we've heard all this before. We've seen all this before. This is what they said about the Jews. In fact, I'll give you an example. Henry Ford, he was the maker of the Ford automotive. I'm sure you know who he is. He accused the Jews of the exact same thing. He said the Jews were coming to this country to implement their version of law to overthrow our financial systems. We saw how they said the Jews are coming to this country to implement Jewish Sharia law. You know what Jewish Sharia law is? Communism. The Jews were subverting our society to become communist, and the list goes on. So this is why we condemn this so-called criticism of Islam. We look at our kids, we look at our future, and we see that the objective and goal of this criticism is to single us out, as a pariah, to show that these people, no, they're different from everyone else. Muslims don't belong in this society because they're going to do to us what they did to the Jews. That's our secret. That's why we condemn it.
Yeah, just understand, in Western society, freedom of speech is paramount.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom to criticize, to have dialogue. So that is a big issue. That's a violation of the fundamental tenets of Western society. Nadir?
Yeah. Well, you know what?
To actually silence criticism.
I disagree, and I'll tell you why. Because the people who are the best at this are the Jews themselves. Listen, can you criticize Jews the way you do Muslims? Of course not. If you say anything, derogatory or negative towards Jews, this is considered anti-Semitism. So what we are doing, we are just following their playbook. In fact, they're teaching us. They're coming to us and saying, hey, listen, we were here at this point. We were here in this country at one time where they actually had signs on the beaches, no dogs or Jews allowed. And we had to live through that. We see you as Muslims are going through the same thing. Here's how to handle the situation. So because it's condemned to criticize Jews and to kind of view them as some kind of threat, we're saying, hey, come on, you should now apply the same rules to Muslims and Islam. So this is the biggest reason why it's not Sharia law. We want to implement Sharia law. It is condemned to criticize Islam. No, I'm sorry, that's not the reason. There's bigger and better reasons for that.
No, thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty interesting perspective.
Yeah, because I condemn the criticism of Islam. I have to look at it first. If you're just criticizing it, like let's say I don't believe the Quran is a scientific miracle, there's all kind of errors in it, I'm okay with that. I don't care. But once it starts talking about us as a people, boom, we're gonna call that out.
But any criticism is
no, not any criticism.
Yes.
No, there's many people who criticize Islam who are totally okay. We don't view them as hate mongers.
But you draw the line then on the criticism, or
once
do
it
you?
starts pointing towards a people, that these people are a threat. These people are conniving. They are doing taqiyya. You can't trust them. These people are here to have some agenda, a hidden agenda. This was all which was said about the Jews. And the list goes on. Like, for example, this is what Bill Warner, he's a hate monger for doing that. And Robert Spencer. These are hate mongers. So
because you're arguing they're using a broad brush.
Well, what they're doing, they're saying that we are like that hook-nosed, curly-haired Jew. Please forgive me for saying that, but this is the way the Christians viewed the Jewish people. Now the hook-nosed, curly-haired Jew has been replaced by the hook-nosed, curly-haired Muslim, who is a conniving, seditious, fake person who smiles in your face, but he has some secret agenda. This is my point. We've seen all this before. I can open up the history books and I can show you what you're saying, what those people are saying about Muslims has been said about the Jews, but tweaked a little bit here and there. So, it for us is about our survival, and it's about getting good coaching from our Jewish friends who pointed out to us, hey, don't stand for that. Speak out against that. So I think we should probably close out here.
No, I really appreciate
yeah.
you sharing that. I didn't understand that perspective, Nadir.
Mm-hmm.
And I should stress too that we condemn groups. There was a particular group in Canada, they were hating all Muslims. And it could have been any other group, but we ended up publicly condemning them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Oh, yeah.
I'll be very clear about that. So our criticism is pertaining specifically to the ideology. We don't wish ill will on Muslim people.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that. And you did open my eyes a bit wider today, and I appreciate that. But understand, with that, Gurtan, he called me a racist. To me, that's false. Islam is not a race. I didn't make a single derogatory remark towards Sikhs or Muslims or any other group in that video.
Yeah.
Nadir?
No,
I was criticizing him for his political correctness and vote pandering. And it's unfortunate in the media how it gets spinned.
Yes, I did see that.
They were thinking I thought he was a Muslim. And I hate all Muslims. I'm crazed, right?
And I did.
Right.
That's why I'm glad you clarified that with me, because when I first saw the video, I thought the same thing.
I've been to mosque. I've talked to imams. I've got Muslim friends.
Sure.
Understand that. I've been to the Middle East. It had nothing to do with that.
Right.
I know what a Sikh is. I know why they wear a turban. And I respect why they wear it. Because of atrocities in their past. When Sikhs fled, they said, wear a turban because we don't want you ever to flee again and not stand up for Sikhism. Right? Basically. That's the reason.
Well, let's end on this note.
But you see the media manipulation. Did I open your eyes? Are you surprised of what I shared today?
Yeah, I actually, when we first started the discussion, when you started telling me about actually your experiences of visiting a masjid and going to Pakistan, I was like, oh, wait a second, whoa! I thought this is a guy who doesn't know the difference between a Sikh and a Muslim. Okay,
I spent a month in Pakistan. I went all over Pakistan.
I'm from Pakistan,
and I was treated with utmost generosity by those people. Obviously, there's within any society, there's going to be extreme elements, but I've nothing but gratitude for the way I was treated. Right. So I'm not gonna deny that.
All right. And we'll close out on that note. And there's one thing I just would like to add is, and I do applaud your efforts in condemning the hate when you see it, but I'd also like you to go kind of one step further and condemn the ideas which show that a particular group of people have some kind of act of sedition, has some kind of act of connivingness, has some kind of act of hidden agendas. Okay, because that's just a repeat of history. And we've seen that happen to Jews. And so I tell you what, you did mention some good things. I would say some good points to discuss and debate, which I didn't get to address in discussion, like about apostasy and things like that. Is Islam a religion of peace? Maybe we can do that at a later time. But I'm glad. I want to thank you for having this discussion with me. So, all right, I'll just go ahead and close out then.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nadir.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.